Are are we live? Yes, so we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a classic Saturday stream. No taking time off like last week. Nothing to stop us from having ourselves some classic Dungeons and Dragons talk today. But, before we get into all of that, I've got one little announcement I'll have to make about what's going to happen approaching the end of the year. But even before that, how are you all doing? How have your weeks been? How are your weekends shaping up to be? And what does everybody have planned for the coming holidays? Shalom to you too, Marcy. It is so nice to catch a stream again. Hell yeah, crazy. Been missing you. What have you been up to that's got you so fucking busy? I noticed last couple of weeks viewership's been a little down, but I also know we're in a bit of a finals time period for a lot of people. Not to mention, I know towards the end of the year as holidays get up and going, people tend to have their schedules get somewhat erratic, overfilled, or just a bit hard to predict. So I want to check in with all of y'all. How are you guys doing? And how do you think the end of your year is going to shape up to be? Our D&D was canceled again. Terrible! No! No, what happened? Fucking canceling's the worst. Did you guys get much warning, though, or was it pretty sudden? I've mainly been stuck working, but after this week won't be nearly as busy. Okay, I got you crazy. Sorry, things have been a bit busy lately, but hopefully it sounds like heading into the new year, things will clean up a bit for you. Uh, but I do have a bit of an announcement to make. So, all of my schedules are set, plans are in motion, and for the last week of the year, I am going to be going back home to hang out with my family and friends up in Alaska for a little bit. And because of that, I don't think I'll have quite the access to good, stable internet, my full streaming rig, and everything else that I use to kind of put on a show for you guys. So it's very likely the last week of the year we're going to have to go without me for 1 or 2 weekends. My flight is going to be on the 24th, which is Friday, which means it's very likely even that day I won't be able to do a classic Friday stream for you all. Though, I do have one thing possibly lined up for next week. Hopefully, I'll get all of that confirmed around Monday, and I'll be able to let you all know on the Discord if a little special something something will be coming through without any issues. Dang it, I can't disable your weapons? Of course not, Sour Cake. This isn't a Mass Effect stream. And I'll make sure to hydrate Terramon. So, hopefully, I'll have one special stream for you next week, but it's very likely I won't be able to stream over the 2 weekends after that. So, we might have to take just a little bit of holiday time off of one another. Let's hear. It's been sudden, like within an hour of the set time. Fuck, no, that's the fucking worst for a D&D game when it's canceled like an hour ahead of time. That is not the thing you ever want to see. What is it? Oh, Martial, I'm afraid I can't let it slip just because it's something that might end up having to get rescheduled itself. So I want to make sure everything is locked in and confirmed before I let you all know what is going to be coming up. Okay? For now, we'll simply say, hopefully, I'll be able to get something special in for all of y'all. But with that, I believe I am stressed. No need to be stressed, Marcia. You do have your artwork done, though, right? I believe you had some homework you were doing over this week, something you wanted to show off to everybody. If you're ready, we can do it now, or if you still need a little more time to finish bubbling your answers in, we can do it at the end of stream. Afternoon to you, Vulcan. How are you doing? Well. While Marciel debate about that. Oh, Marcy. What? What has happened? You said it was going to be super exciting and ready for the stream, Marcy. I got myself all already excited, hyped to set apart a period of time for us to look at it and judge and comment. What happened? Hmm. Did I say that? I believe so. During one of my last streams, you did. I suppose if you need more time, that's fine, Marcy. Though it's very likely we won't be able to have it on stream for a couple of weeks after this, so... I guess we'll just have to go on without it. Well. I suppose we'll simply have to cozy on up to the Don't end the stream, it'll be done by the end. Terama, your solution is both ingenious, creative, and fucking impossible, and you know it. I still have 2 hours, right? You have a little under 2 hours, Marcy. So, we'll have to see what happens. But, I suppose with the sad news from Marcy Allen, all of our intros out of the way, perhaps it's time for us to return to our story within the world of Deorum. A recap will probably be in order. Something to catch everyone up, to reset the mood, to remind us of what comes next. The party having resolved Gala's request, insofar with the nobility, had returned to him with their voucher for his ability to open in the market square of Auten. So grateful was he that he offered the party discounts and whatever support or services he could provide them. However, some of the more interesting magical items, boots of elven kind, spell scrolls of powerful natures, even a ring of fireball, remained far and truly outside the party's price range. And so they asked how they might seek further discount, and Gala informed them the second job they could do for him. In the city lived a guard by the name of Grek, a captain, who had 2 jobs he needed Gala to do before he could offer promises that his men would not sequester magical artifacts for the war effort. The first was simply, as far as Gala knew, accepting a job from the guild hall. The second involved a nearby mine that had recently gone dark. So the party set out to meeting with Captain Grek and learning more details about what he wished. It seemed a letter was being sent from Auten to Verfia, to the neighboring kingdom of Pontvi, directly to the palace, to the hands of Princess Katarina Pontvi. What Captain Grek wanted was for someone in the party to accept the job, to leave town with the letter, and to return soon after, and give it to him instead. Uncertain of its context or the purpose of this, the party decided to accept, agreeing to send Rasmussen to the Guildhall to accept the job, many of them wanting to keep their names cleared of a failed letter delivery, just in case anything went wrong. Secondly, it seems that a very important iron mine within Taverfia had recently stopped shipping out supplies, and that the captain had already sent a group of scouts to check out the problem, but they had never returned. And so he needed a group of adventurers to find out what was up with the mine, and if there were any threats, to eliminate them. This fell squarely within what the party was hoping for a mission. Monsters in a mine. And so they put their plans into motion. Rasmussen departing to the Guildhall, gathering the letter, and making his way out of the city, giving the full impression of an adventurer performing their job, while the rest of the party gathered and began making their way down the road in the direction of the mine. They would find themselves all meeting up hours outside the city and continue along the way, following a dirt and gravel path that led away from the main roads, weaving between the dense forests, coming closer and closer to the foot of the mountain on the southern reaches of Taverfia. They began to hear sounds in the distance. Chittering laughter on the wind. The faint intonations of the abyssal language. With Tortuga and Malachite scouting out ahead from the darkness of the shadows of this wood, they would see the entrance to the mine, and in front of it, piled up gore, viscera, refuse, an overturned wagon, and a handful of gnolls digging, picking up scraps, and celebrating a recent victory. Returning to the party, a plan would be made. It was likely there were more gnolls packed up inside, and these outer scouts would give away their position, so they needed a way to lead them away from the mouth of the cave. Traveling a short distance, the party would set up in a dip in the terrain, somewhere where they could hopefully draw the creatures out of eyesight of the mouth of their new home. With a combination of minor illusion spells and a cleverly laid ambush, they would draw the 4 or so unarmored gnolls away from their home, down to the edge of the dip, where 2 of them would begin searching for the wounded animal the party had hoped would be bait. But as one of the gnolls began to sniff on the wind, he would realize the illusion gave off no smell of blood, become hesitant to continue, become wary. As the other 2 pushed into the dense foliage, searching for this wounded creature, the party was forced to begin their ambush. Tortuga, rushing rapidly from his hiding spot, would cross to one of the gnolls, quickly stunning it. Moving on to the second, he would begin driving his fists into its chest, hoping to disable 2 of them quickly. Malachite would drop from her position and begin firing arrows at long range at the beast at the top of the lip, while Valandria's firebolt would finish off the stunned gnoll. With only one of them left alive, an arrow through its chest, the gnoll would lean back and give out a bellowing, laughing call that would echo along the side of the mountain, reach the mouth of the cave. As the laughing response would come from inside. A small group of gnolls, 4 more warriors, and a larger one bearing a massive longbow would come from the entrance, and seeing the party dashing from their distant position, trying to finish off their ambush and make it to the cave before response can be had, the gnolls would smile and laugh. Though the longbow would send her pack forward to attack these intruders, taking aim and firing with her arrows. In response, Valandria and Malachite would begin long-range responses, Malachite's arrows focusing on the archer as she shot, Valandria attempting to wound the creatures rushing towards them. While Rasmussen, Perch, and Pharaoh brought up the rear, Valandria and Tortuga would run headfirst into the beasts, carving, striking, and moving them aside. They would begin closing the distance between themselves and the mouth of the cave, where from inside they would hear more laughter, more abyssal. There were many, many more. As an arrow would find Tortuga, he would instead catch it and throw it back at this archer gnoll before the rest of the party would close in and cut her down, stopping at the entrance to the cave, the darkness within filled with the soft noises of the gnolls waiting for their prey. With that, I believe we are caught up with what happened during our last story time stream. The gnolls await now, sending no one else out. The party stands at the entrance, knowing they'll have to fight through tight quarters in darkness to break through the gnoll line. And still, they don't know what all lies within. With our recap aside, then, we could take a moment to see if there are any questions or clarifications from you all. Is there anything you feel we must know before we press on ahead with our main story, before the party attempts to clear the Zmine of all remaining gnolls, before they have to face what secrets lie in the darkness? Or if any of you simply have any other D&D questions, now is most certainly the time to ask as we pause between our recap and the story proper. Well, it seems perhaps there are no questions. Have I perhaps lulled you all into a state of sleep? Or are we simply excited to see the blood flow? What is left but to move headlong into our tale? Well then. The party begins to close in on the mouth of the cave. While many of them have dark vision and can peer through into the darkness, the grade light within, the lack of color or pronunciation, makes it hard to make out great details. They could see movement, figures in the darkness, creatures waiting to strike at them. I'll go forward first, Perch says, preparing his plate mail, holding his weapon, the strange blade taken from the Sethic man in his hands. As he begins to stride forward, though, he feels a hand on his shoulder stopping him. As he turns to Valandria, who smiles. Perhaps we should wait just a moment. I think something unfortunate will happen to the first through. So I have a better idea instead of all of us charging in. Just a little decoy. With that, Valandria casts Minor Illusion again, creating a still form of a rabbit mid-hop. Let our little friend here draw the first attacks. And with that, she presses her hand forward, allowing the illusion to enter the mouth of the cave. As soon as it clears the lip into the darkness, arrows rain from several directions, striking through it, though finding no purchase against the illusory target. Go! Valandria states. With that, Tortuga is first through the breach. In rapid movements, he finds himself in and amongst the gnolls, striking at the first two unarmored creatures he comes across. Perch is next, bull rushing into the breach, finding none directly ahead of him, but setting up a position for all others to move through. Rasmussen follows in, crossbow in one hand, whip in the other. Weapons aloft, he begins firing at gnolls to begin pressing in. Valandria, Malachite, and Pharaoh are next to dart through the entrance, each setting up a position in their defensive ring, allowing Malachite to fire off arrows and Pharaoh to support with her magics as the fight begins. Tortuga makes quick work of the first gnoll, though is unable to fully get past the second, instead moving forward to try to bring as much attention onto himself as possible. Valandria finds herself dashing forward, seeking to get onto an archer as quick as she can, but finding herself quickly surrounded by gnolls. A large female, bearing armor, a shield, and a heavy cleaver-like blade, steps forward to Perch, eager to fight this muscled monstrosity. The two begin clashing almost immediately. But an opening has been made as gnolls begin pressing in on the back end of the party's formation. Rasmussen fires crossbow bolts as they approach, killing the unarmored of the two, but finds himself having to abandon his crossbow to go whip and cudgel into the new gnoll, striking at him. As the formations of all the creatures close in, arrows begin flying from all directions, two piercing through Malachite's flesh, wounding her before she can fire back, eliminating one of the archers. Another arrow tings off of the armor of Pharaoh, while the final one meets the blade of Perch, being cast aside as he engages in combat with this aggressive gnoll. For the next round of combat, the gnolls begin lashing out wildly. One blade catches Valandria in the hip, though she's able to quickly turn it aside and strike home, slaying one of the two gnolls, stopping her from reaching an archer, though a minor wound has definitely been inflicted. Tortuga next lashes out at the gnolls around him, killing none of them, but creating an opening that allows him to close in on an archer and launch his strikes home, slaying it. Malachite goes into exchange with one of the last archers, firing arrows back and forth. She finds herself taking another stray bolt, but is able to finish this one off. As two of the gnolls close in on Tortuga, and one dashes towards Pharaoh. Perch takes this time to step back, guiding the leader closer in and allowing him to support Pharaoh with an overheaded strike, empowered with a dark green fire that seems to run up the length of his blade, slaying the beast that had attempted to kill the party's cleric. Rasmussen engages with the gnoll trying to press in from the left, and eventually is able to slay it, though not without taking some injuries himself. He begins moving forward, attempting to flank the leader of this group of gnolls. The next round of combat now, Malachite turns and with an arrow shot frees Volandria up to finish what she must do next, allowing her to dash forward and slaying the last archer before it can take its quick shots into the group. Tortuga begins fighting with these two gnolls, trying to keep them from re-engaging, slaying one, though finding the claws of the next, raking across his arms, loosening the bandages he held there. Now all that is left is the leader of the small group within the entrance. And as she fights viciously, finding purchase just for a moment in Perch's armor and biting into the softness underneath, she is eventually overwhelmed and slain herself. With that, the last gnoll begins making a dash for the northern exit, trying to disappear into the darkness. As a crossbow bolt and an arrow fly after him, he whimpers out in pain, giving a call as he begins to disappear into the darkness. The party quickly turns on their heels to chase after him, but as they step forward, a rain of 3 more arrows comes from the right passageway. Tortuga is able to block one aside, catch another, but the third finds purchase in his hip. He rips the arrow, turns, and says, "We might have to deal with this before we continue chasing." And with that, begins darting forward. "Hold up! Let the armored ones go first, you idiot!" Perch yells, trying to catch up with the rapid movements of the monk. Fucking hell. The party turns on their heels, redirecting their attention away from the passage from which the gnoll had disappeared, and setting up to push right into whatever lay down this hall. With that, the party pushes forward and finds their way into a small enclosed room. Gnolls immediately close in on them, supported by an array of archers. Excuse me. They begin pushing forward, Tortuga and Volandria attempting to flank wide to get to the archers, while the gnolls take advantage of this opening and press in on the rest of the party, attempting to make it to the archers and the cleric. Perch remains in his place, trying to fight back the vicious onslaught of claws that comes from these gnolls, and seeing them push Malachite and Rasmussen back, Pharaoh looks around her and offers up a quiet prayer, invoking the fury of her god. A warm wind begins to roll through the cave entrance as white petals seem to swirl around the 3. As the petals swirl, they begin to move faster and faster until they seem to strike against the first gnoll they meet. But instead of flattening or crumpling around it, they seem to cut through its flesh, acting as a guardian for Pharaoh. As the storm of white petals begins tearing through the 3 gnolls, they turn blood red, staining themselves with each pass. While the gnolls survive the first onslaught of attacks, as Malachite, Perch, and Rasmussen support Pharaoh's magic, they are quickly cut down, Valandria finding herself engaged with one archer, Tortuga with another. They make quick work of them, leaving only one archer, or so they believe, as another pair of gnolls run from a back room, dragging on a thin rope a massive beast, larger than any of the party members, larger than any horse. A massive, wide-mouthed creature, some sort of cross between a badger and a hyena, begins entering the room. It begins looking around the storm of petals, the rapidly approaching elves running towards it. Its mouth drops open, and instead of some howling call or vicious gnoll-like laughter, the party finds themselves freezing as a voice comes from its open jaw. Please, don't hurt him. I'm sorry. Just please, no. In a moment of horror, they all stare at this beast as it begins to charge forward. The weeping of some past victim dripping from the Lacrota's mouth. As the creature begins charging forward, Tortuga and Valandria move to try to intercept it to the best of their abilities. Valandria sparing a single strike to drive back the last of the gnoll archers. The other gnolls moving up to flank. Rasmussen and Perch quickly move to try to support. They'll have to do things the best of their abilities to turn this fight in their favor. But as the creature finds itself between Tortuga and Valandria, it begins bucking wildly, kicking its hooved feet in all directions. Valandria finds a sharp strike against her temple, drives her to the ground for a moment. Tortuga barely avoids the full brunt of its hind legs kicking at him, though they do clip his shoulder. He feels something tear, a wound for later. Well then, if you wish to do that, Valandria cries out. She begins running at the beast. Taking a leap, she finds herself up on the creature's back and begins driving her blades into its shoulder. She's able to strike it once, twice, but as the creature bucks wildly and runs forward, she finds herself kicked from its back, landing hard on the ground as the creature continues forward. As it charges away, Rasmussen sinks 2 bolts into its hinds as Perch drives his blade into another leg, though he is quickly stopped from pursuit as the gnolls push forward into these threats. The beast charges towards the rain of petals and Pharaoh. Malachite looses an arrow that drives into the creature's shoulder, causing blood to rain down. But the beast's mouth remains open in eager hunger, running full speed at Pharaoh, the crying voice of a victim. Pharaoh looks at the creature as it gets closer and closer. She lifts her spear in her arm, as if preparing to cast another spell, but then flips it into reverse grip and drops her arm back as if wielding a javelin. She throws her spear as the creature charges towards her, and the tip strikes true, sinking into the open maw of the Lacrota, driving through the back of its skull and severing its spine. The creature collapses, sliding into the petal storm. With the last 2 gnolls left isolated, they are made quick work of. The party only stopping for a moment to breathe and consider what is happening. What in the world is that thing? Valandria says, looking at the massive monstrosity dead at the feet of Pharaoh, who begins drawing her spear from its skull. I do not know, Farah says. This is the first time I have seen such a thing. Ah, I've faced Gnolls once or twice before, Rasmussen says, but I've not seen something like that. In silence, Tortuga walks to the edge of this room and looks through a doorway into what seems to be something like a storage closet. Large and open, he sees 3 stakes driven into the ground with 3 sets of rope hanging from them. In front of the stakes, a large trough filled with rancid meat. He turns his back and rejoins the group. There are no more threats, and it seems nothing left of value in that room. Suddenly the party hears more calls back the way they came, in the direction that the one escaped Gnoll had disappeared down the entrance. It seems there's at least one more group of Gnolls to deal with here. I suppose we should take care of that before they can truly set something nasty up for us, huh? Yeah, that seems all right, Rasmussen says. But as he turns, he finds himself staring at a strange door set in the top of this cave. A massive metallic door, seemingly like a vault, with 3 separate combination locks set in its side. Now what could this be? Rasmussen says, looking it over, seeing the scorch marks, claw marks, and in some places the indentations of heavy hoofbeats against its side. Seems even the Gnolls couldn't get through this. Rasmussen takes another moment to stare at the door before the yipping laughter down the cave draws his attention again. I suppose something to solve once we clear this place out, yeah? And with that, the party returns back to the entrance where they came from. They begin setting up at the last path available to them. They glare down into the darkness as they see stairs carved into the cave, going downward, downward, downward. They can see distant veils of movement. They can hear heavy wooden clunking and stones scrambling. It seems they are preparing something for us, no? Valandria states, staring down into the darkness below. Goods. What do you think? Just trying to stop us from getting down there, or do you think they got traps? The party takes a deep breath and begins to walk forward into the darkness before Valandria holds up her hand. Before we go, perhaps just one quick spell. She holds her hand as fiery energy gathers in her fingertips and launches forward into the darkness of the cave. The party watches as the bolt flies through the darkness, leaving a trail of light behind it for just a moment, illuminating the glowing eyes of the many Gnolls waiting for them. Eventually it strikes the wooden surface of the barricade that the Gnolls had prepared and begins to slowly ignite a wheel of a wagon overturned, providing a thin, dull glow and revealing what hides in the darkness below. With a clear sign of threat, suddenly a dozen arrows fly from the darkness of this mine shaft towards Valandria, who falls back behind the edge of the wall. Well, I suppose we know what's down there now. Yeah, Tortuga says, taking a quick look and counting out distances in his head. Valandria? What is it, Tortuga? Remember that spell I bought you from Gala? Yes, haste. What? I think it's time you used it on me. Really? You think now's the time? I wouldn't mind making use of it myself. Listen, I could close the whole distance between us and that barricade, get up and over it, and disperse them. And all I need is that haste. All right. I will say I do not like the idea of you isolating yourself like that. If we want to break through, I think this is our only chance. With that, Valandria nods and begins incanting from her new spell. Looking Tortuga over, she holds a hand out and then begins to draw it back, almost in slow motion. The flicker of the flames down the tunnel, too, seem to move slowly to Tortuga. Everything feels a little off, a little murky. As Tortuga turns, it is like all the weight has been removed from his body, as if he had been wearing weighted clothing his whole life, and only now had found a way to take them off. In a blur, Tortuga dashes down the cave entrance, pole vaults, using his quarterstaff over the barricade, and finds himself landing in the midst of a group of gnolls, striking out in all directions, pulling as much attention towards himself as possible. As the gnolls begin to turn and close in on this new target, raining in from the many different shafts going off from this main mine direction, the rest of the party tries to dart forward to provide as much support as possible, but find themselves immediately intercepted by more gnolls and archers. Tortuga is going to be alone for a moment now. As Malachite and Pharaoh push up, Malachite begins firing arrows at the creatures attacking Tortuga, currently the only one able to provide easy support. But as her arrows fly, she wounds one, but finds she has drawn the attention of all the archers. 4 arrows fly in her direction, all of them finding her, causing her to drop to her knees and pull one arrow from her chest. Wounded horribly, she begins trying to think of a better approach, hoping that someone can better deal with these archers. Perch drives forward, calling on the power within this blade. Whatever powers that are here, I need your help. As Perch brings the blade above his head, suddenly, he finds himself in a different cave, somewhere strange to him. Dark green crystals jut from the walls, the floors, the ceiling. And far away, he sees a collection of these strange green gems, flames arcing between their tips, as if passing an electrical current betwixt them. As Perch looks around this strange place, the sound of gems and rock grinding together form a strange, guttural growl. As Perch looks towards the source, he sees a spot where the gems begin to quiver and shake, and a note, a single tone, rings out through the crystals. Perch is now back, standing in front of the gnolls, his blade held aloft. He sees crystals forming up from the hilt of the blade along the flat, small beads like a rock candy forming up it, and you can hear them humming in that similar tone. Suddenly, an eruption of fire gouts out the tip of his blade as he drops it down, slaying one gnoll and causing the other to fall back, trying to pat out the burns now on its skin. This allows Perch to push forward, stopping one gnoll from supporting its allies. Valandria begins to move forward again, though unable to break combat with one of the gnolls. She is darting about, dodging, diving, slashing. She needs to get free to help Tortuga, who is about to be in a terrible place of pain. Rasmussen takes one step forward, and with his cudgel in hand, lashes out at both gnolls beside him. For this is no ordinary cudgel, but the one he had collected from the strange underground group in Scarin. And as the copper head strikes the two gnolls, a shock of electricity goes up their spines, causing them to hesitate, be unable to react quickly. "Thank you," Valandria says, realizing the creatures have given her an opening. She begins running towards the barricade, and at the last moment casts Thunderstep, causing the barricade to fly back in two directions, and allowing her to appear on the opposite side of the gnolls, now surrounding Tortuga. With the barricade ripped open, Pharaoh begins moving forward to try and support Rasmussen, summoning a spiritual weapon into the combat with the main group of gnolls. Malachite steps forward again, taking another shot, picking off another archer, while another one fires back at her, driving her into the wall. She now must take cover, cannot risk being hit again, lest she be driven to unconsciousness. Tortuga looks around at the gnolls closing in on him, some with claws, blades, and other weapons. They begin lashing out from all directions. But it's all so slow, as if fighting. Looks like we might have lost connection for a moment there. Well. I suppose we'll wait a moment to see if everyone can make it back in. My apologies, everybody. I think internet dropped out there. How are you all doing? Let's see. Are people reconnecting now? Thought it was my internet. No problem, Vulcan. Yeah. Oh, God. Alive-ish. Damn, guys. What happened? Where'd y'all leave off on? Shit, that sucks. I don't know. What happened last? What did you guys miss? Lightning cudgel. God damn! Well then, I'm gonna have to recap a bit. After Rasmussen was able to stun these two creatures using his lightning cudgel, Valandria was able to dash up to the barricade and cast Thunderstep, causing it to fling wide open and allowing her to flank behind the creatures, trying to slay Tortuga. Well, on his turn, digging into the power of haste, he was able to lash out more rapidly than he had ever done before, slaying the two archers, wounding another gnoll, and falling back to a more defensible position, forcing the gnolls to split between the two new threats. With this, Pharaoh steps forward and with a wave of her hand causes one gnoll to collapse, rushing past Rasmussen. She needs to make it to Tortuga, but while he is fighting with lightning speed, she can see he is growing tired, wounded, and needs to heal him soon. Perch brings his blade down again, slaying one more gnoll, and turns about to make sure the last will not escape him. As he engages with it, though, Malachite peeks out from her position, and with an arrow, finishes it off, allowing Perch to turn and rejoin into the main fray. The combat continues onward as the Gnolls press in on Tortuga. He's able to dodge, deflect, and survive another round, but two more clawed hands find purchase into him, shredding his shirt, causing his blood to leak more profusely. He can hear a voice calling out to him, though in his rapid state, he cannot quite tell what it is saying. Melandria begins making a backwards fight with one Gnoll, trying to draw it away from Tortuga and towards the archer, hoping to keep these two from being able to support anyone else. While Perch rushes forward, he's unable to fully help Tortuga, taking his entire turn to get up there, as well as Pharaoh, desperate to heal him. Rasmussen then takes the remainder of his time, finishing off the last of the Gnolls on this side of the barricade before rushing upwards. And with the archers fully distracted, Malachite begins moving towards them, and with an arrow is able to finally help Tortuga in his predicament. In a flurry of slashes, Melandria finishes off one more Gnoll before turning her attention back to the last of the archers, who begins running towards a door at the end of the hallway. The party presses forward, and in one last round are able to slay the two Gnolls as they dig their teeth into Tortuga, trying to finish him off, freeing him from his death surroundings. As the party turns towards the last Gnoll, they see it hit the doorway, and pressing against it, find it locked against him. He turns on his heel, facing the party, and begins chittering in abyssal as it draws an arrow, preparing to make one last stand here. The party, however, is quick to close in, and this Gnoll finds its last breath before it can release an arrow. Well then, Melandria states, several of her spell slots expended, feeling exhausted. I hope that is the last of them. I doubt it, Rasmussen says, looking forward. I suspect that one was trying to get to its friends, but I think they have that door locked. Malachite and Tortuga are next to move forward, both bloodied, horribly injured. Pharaoh finds herself moving up and quickly using most of her power to bring them back from the brink of death, to heal them and prepare them for whatever fight might come next. Well then, Perch says, we got at least one more room, right? Perhaps, Melandria states, that depending on how deep this mine goes, maybe there are several more rooms after this. Fucking hope not. I'm running low on energy myself. Same here. True. Yeah. Well then, I think you all will have to let me go first, Perch says, stepping forward to the door. I think I still have quite a bit of fight left in me. With that, he cracks his knuckles and his neck as shadows seem to begin leaking from the gaps between his armor, his great sword held aloft. He moves forward to this door, places the great sword between its crack, and drives it downward, shattering the thin, supported barricade that the Gnolls had set up on the other side. Let's fucking go. With that, Perch steps through the massive door and reveals the room beyond. At the far end, they see a rudimentary throne with a massive halberd-wielding Gnoll sat in it. the alpha of this clan. She is surrounded by 3 massive males, each of which unique in their appearance. One, a massive, aged gnoll with the appearance of a spotted hyena. Many scars mark his face as his graying hair gives away his age, and the fact that this is a gnoll that has survived decades of constant fighting. Directly beside her is the largest gnoll that the party had seen, a massive gnoll in the shape of a striped hyena, a pronounced mohawk running down its back, muscular and angry. And finally, amongst this trio, the smallest of them all is a red-eyed albino gnoll. No obvious sign of what type of hyena it might draw its appearance from. This trio draws their weapons and seems to form the honor guard around the alpha. And as the party takes a step in, they see several more gnolls preparing to fight. But most horribly, the charging figure of a Lacrota running straight towards them. "Fuck," Perch says. "Close the door! Close the door!" The party quickly retreats back into the mine shaft they had just come from, as all of them throw their weight against the door. They hear the trampling feet coming towards it as a sudden weight rips into the doorway, knocking all of them back before they can reset themselves. "Shit!" Villandria says. I could cast Tiamon's tiny hut," she yells out. "I need 10 minutes, though, in order to cast it. If we get that in front of the door, the creature will not be able to break through." 10 fucking minutes? I don't think we can hold this door for 10 fucking minutes, Rasmussen says, pushing his weight as they all hear the trampling hooves running towards them again, the slamming weight throwing them all back before they can reset themselves again. "Ah, fucking hell. Whatever we're gonna do, we need to do it quick," Tortuga says. "We cannot hold this door." "Oh, fucking hell. Well, if we cannot hold it for 10 minutes, then I guess we fight." The party looks around and nods as they hear the Lacrota retreating again, preparing for a third charge into the doorway. "So how do we do this?" "I think we let the door open and hope that throws the creature off enough. Form a ring, slaughter it." With that, the party forms an open oval shape around the doorway and back away as they hear the trampling footsteps of the Lacrota running towards it, hoping to leave the door open so that when the beast runs into it, it'll be thrown off. Unable to catch its footing, they can hope to slay it before it might slay them. The trampling gets closer and closer, and as the Lacrota reaches the door, they are sent wide in its sprinting gallop. It strains to try and stop its forward momentum, sliding along the stone floor before it meets Villandria's blade. Farah's spear, Perch running forward and stabbing, Rasmussen firing bolts and whipping at it, Tortuga launching in fish strikes, and Malachite, dropping her bow, draws a pair of scimitars and begins carving into the creature. It is instantly bloodied, near death, but still alive, as it begins reeling about in all directions, kicking out its hooves, trying to drive anyone to the ground. In a moment of panic, horrible luck, or inevitable providence, Malachite finds herself struck full force in the temple by one of the creature's hooves, sending her reeling to the ground. As the creature seems to smile, it begins making a retreat over top of her, trampling her. The sounds of bones crunching, ligaments tearing, and the air escaping from her lungs as the creature attempts to retreat into the throne room. Malachite lies motionless and still. "You fucking monster!" Perch yells out. Drawing his blade, he runs forward to the beast and lunges with his great sword. The creature's mouth opens as the cry of a child begins coming from it. It is suddenly stopped as Perch's blade disappears into the maw. "Burn in hell." A note rings from the stones along the blade as fire erupts from the hilt, down the flat, into the esophagus of the Lakota, burning deep into its guts. Fire begins emerging from its ears, its nostrils, and eventually its eyes, as its flesh is burnt away, and it falls to a burnt husk to the ground. As the creature collapses and Tortuga looks up, arrows begin flying from multiple directions at him. Gnolls begin charging towards this monstrosity that had burnt away their Lakota, as he stands dark, angered, shadow moving like water around him, causing him to disappear into its darkness. 3 shadowy mirrored images pull themselves from the shadows at Perch's feet and seem to join him in combat. Valandria and Tortuga scream as they begin running into the gnolls coming from one side, as Perch takes one step forward to face those from the other. With the Lakota strain slain, the Alpha begin to move forward in a tight formation, ready to drive back these invaders. In that moment, Rasmussen runs to Malachite to check if she is still breathing. As he leans down and listens, he can hear a faint, wet rattle from her chest, breath, though tainted with blood. "Damn it, Malachite, pull through." As Rasmussen begins trying to dig through his pack to find some medicine to help her, arrows rain down on him, one to his shoulder, another to his hip. He rips them from him and turns, firing his bolts into a nearby gnoll, slaying it and allowing the party to begin moving forward again. "We gotta clear out those archers," Rasmussen says. Pharaoh moves forward, summoning a spiritual weapon to try to assist, but they are overrun, at least somewhat. Tortuga, seeing the threat, sees only one option and begins making a run around the edge of the cave. The gnoll he tries to escape from slashes into his back, but he ignores it. He needs to take out the archers. He begins making his way around the edges, engaging with one archer, but as he fights, arrows from the other begin raining in his direction as well, as the Alpha Pack moves past him. Valandria takes one step forward, sending a bolt of flames to kill another gnoll. She sees the true threat and has to find a way to deal with them quickly. Rasmussen moves up to support her, sending bolts to clear out the last of the gnolls between them and the true threat. Pharaoh moves over to Malachite, and with a quick wave of her hands, is able to stabilize her, to spare her from death, at least for now. And Perch engages with these creatures, slaying one and causing shadows to begin roiling up the sides of the other two. We have to deal with the Alpha now, Valandria says, lashing out with all of her weapons, slaying one more of the minions. Rasmussen nods and begins striding forward, splitting with Valandria, trying to pull attention of these gnolls in as many directions as possible. They are stalwart and resolute to fight in their formation. As Rast and Valandria begin closing in, the pack reels about violently. The massive, striped, hyena-like gnoll is the first to move forward, willing to immediately engage in violence, striking out rapidly with its two-handed cleaver. It tries to drive Valandria back, dig into her flesh, using her quick dance of the spell singer. She's able to avoid each of these blows and pull its attention towards her, though with it being so aggressive, she cannot find a way around to the Alpha directing him. Next, the oldest of the three male gnolls steps forward to Rasmussen. It is clearly a master of its art, as it keeps its shield well placed and begins slicing at Rasmussen, forcing him to swap off of his crossbow to his cudgel and whip. He begins lashing out, though the beast does not fear the sting of his whip. Hopefully, Rasmussen can find an opening with his lightning cudgel. Tortuga is able to slay one of the last archers, seeing only one remaining as it prepares to support the fight. He begins running towards it, the creature turning on its heel, seeing the monk closing in rapidly. It fires one shot, which Tortuga is able to glance aside. He sees his opening. He continues moving as the gnoll loads a second arrow, draws it back, and fires. Tortuga hears a warning in his mind. He's moving too quickly. He can't stop in time. As the arrow finds purchase in his chest, Tortuga collapses, sliding across the ground, unmoving. With a bellow of anger, Perch lops off the head of one of the gnolls beside him, opening a path. He begins tearing towards this archer as he watches it pulls a dagger and prepares to finish off the monk. He feels something against his back as one of the gnolls continues after him, striking him as he runs. But Perch ignores it. Perch does not care. He has to save Tortuga. Pharaoh finds herself caught, unsure what to do. One party member is unconscious, her spells expended. Another, at the top of the room, desperately near death. And her last two engaged with a desperate fight. There's only one option here. As Pharaoh moves forward, using what power she has left to try and support the main fight. The Alpha steps forward and begins lashing out with her halberd. Catching Rasmussen in the shoulder, she bloodies him quickly, driving him back. This fight is not going well. Another strike lashes out at Valandria, who glances it aside and smiles. That is exactly what I was waiting for. Suddenly, Valandria points her blade at the gnoll in front of her, as a gout of fire erupts in a straight line, striking the first gnoll, the second, and the third, as the fire extends outwards through the pack of combat. causing severe burns, bloodying all three gnolls. Finally, the albino steps forward to put itself between Valandria and the Alpha, but she only smiles. Their wounds are dreadful. There's only one way forward. Focus that Alpha now! Pharaoh nods, guiding her spiritual weapon to begin digging into the Alpha Gnoll's back. Rasmussen ends up striding backwards, drawing his crossbow again and placing 2 bolts into her, while Perch strikes at the Gnoll, trying to finish off Tortuga, and turns to face his final combatant. In the back, or rather the entrance to the cave, the party does not hear the blood-soaked breath turn to malachite, as, quivering between life and death, she plants a fist into the ground and pushes herself up to a kneeling position. Blood streaming from her wounds. She looks up at the fight with the Gnolls, holds her hand out, and expends the last of her energy in a single spell, causing the rock beneath the Gnoll's feet to begin to roil and bend. It begins reforming and shattering beneath them, throwing the creatures off balance as roots begin to grow up and grip at their ankles, trying to bind them in place, and against many of them, succeeding. The Gnolls find themselves in a field of disturbed rock and grasping root, unable to escape, as Malachite once again falls into unconsciousness. That's what we need, Valandria says, as she steps back from the creatures now bound up in rock and stone. Pointing her blades, she lets out a pair of flaming bolts that find purchase into the Alpha's skin. As one more fiery attack is about to strike at her, the eldest of the 3 Gnoll support dives in front of it, taking the attack on itself, protecting his Alpha. Rasmussen moves forward and strikes out with his cudgel, causing the creature to become unable to react to anything moving forward, and whips out at the Alpha. This strike, as he sends it forward, though, is then intercepted by the albino. It seems these Gnolls will not allow their Alpha to die so easily. Perch makes a final strike against the Gnoll and begins moving forward. This has to end now. Then, a spiritual weapon drives towards the Alpha, unaware of what this strange ritualistic dagger is. She's unable to stop it, as it finds a gap in her armor and disappears into her flesh, slaying her in one fatal stroke. The 3 males begin bellowing in rage, anger, and fury. 2 of them, eyes lock on Pharaoh, who had clearly been the one to summon that dagger, run at her, abandoning all thought of self-preservation. They strike out recklessly against her armor, digging into the metal. Pharaoh feels her blood begin to flow. In their reckless abandon, they open themselves to a flanking maneuver from Valandria, who begins striking out violently, killing one of them, and hoping to draw the attention of the other. But it does not care. It only wishes to slay this murderer. Pharaoh retreats, The gnoll attempts to chase once more. A bolt of fire flies from Valandria's blades and opens a wound in its back, but it doesn't care. 2 crossbow bolts fly from Rasmussen, opening wounds in both of its legs, causing it to stumble and fall, but it slowly rises again. All it wants is Pharaoh dead. It digs its blade into her shoulder, bloodying her, causing her to fall to her own knees as she looks up at the beast. Bloodlust, anger, fury across it. There is nothing you can do, Pharaoh says. The end is already here. As she looks into the red eyes of the albino gnoll before her, she lunges her spear forward into its chest, driving the last breath it possesses from its lungs, finishing this fight for once and for all. Quiet falls on the cave as the last of the gnolls are slain. Quick, Pharaoh, Birch yells. You have to check on Tortuga. I can't tell if he's alive or not. Right, Pharaoh says, making her way across the cave to attempt to stabilize Tortuga. Malachite finds herself awakening to the feel of Rasmussen slapping her face. That's right, Malachite. I know you're alive. I saw that spell you did. Get on up. This isn't the time to nap. The party quickly gathers around Tortuga as they eventually find him awakening from his unconsciousness. As his eyes flutter open, he lashes out with his fist as the party steps back, always wary of waking an unconscious Tortuga. Fuck. Did we die? No, Tortuga. We won. Oh, that's great. Well then, if you all don't mind, I think I'm gonna rest here for a bit, yeah? That's fine. With that, the party all exhale, sighs of relief, thankful to be alive. Spell slots entirely spent. Health nearly depleted in multiple members. 2 party members having fallen unconscious. This is one of the most violent fights they had had. And they all take a moment to breathe and rest. Checking the cave for loot can come later. With that, I think we can take a quick intermission, if you all do not mind. I need a momentary break to go get something else to drink to re-wet my whistle. We had quite a fight to get through, and I didn't want to pause in the middle of it, so hopefully I'll be able to reclaim my voice very soon. But for now, I wish to ask, how are you all doing? What did you think of the Gnoll fight? Hi, Canada Bacon. How are you doing? It's been a while since I've seen you. What did you guys think of the party's ability to defeat these Gnolls? And what do you think lies within the treasure trove that the Gnolls have hidden away? Or perhaps, more interestingly, what might lie behind the mysterious vault door here? If any of you have any questions or anything you'd like to say about this encounter, go ahead and let me know. I need to go grab something else to rehydrate with. I'll just be gone for a minute. So we'll get back. We can continue chatting. And once that's done, we can move ourselves to the end of today's story. Now, my apologies, as I need to wet my... Alright, y'all. I'm back, and I brought you all a little gift. Ah, Chris. So let's see what I missed. Oh, I could be doing better. Sorry, I've been busy with school, but I'm back now. Oh, no problem, Canada. I take it you had a lot of finals going on lately, yeah? And thank you, Crazy Seth. Yes, I am hydrating right now. Awesome fight. Oh, wow. Aw, thanks, Hateborn. You do much D&D yourself? Could you tell to a degree what was actually happening here? Because, man, this party, honestly, for having two of them get knocked unconscious during the last room, they literally tore through so many gnolls in this fight. That was a little insane. I'm about to have finals. Damn, Mortis. I'm sorry to hear that. Nah, because honestly, when I had made this, originally I had about, I think, 20 gnolls throughout the entire cave and 2 Lacrota ready to go. But they were going to die. Yeah, I know. They were really close to one of them getting full killed when Tortuga had himself isolated by an archer ready to finish him off. But the Perch fucking cautioned to the wind that shit and got himself up just in time. But when I was making the session, I asked one of my IRL friends who couldn't play how many gnolls were too many gnolls. When he asked me what I meant, I said, well, I was making a cave filled with gnolls, and I had a number I felt pretty confident in. And I asked him, so, I don't know, what do you think is enough gnolls? And he looks at me and he goes, double it. What? Double the gnolls. So, I went back through my overall design of the mine, and I doubled the number of gnolls a day before the party got into the fight, on the request of one of my IRL friends saying I needed to double the gnolls no matter what number I had prepared. I've not played, but I like D&D. Hell yeah, I hate Born. Same fucking... Everybody like D&D. Honestly, sometimes it feels like not playing D&D lets you love it just a little bit more when you don't have to deal with some of the idiosyncrasies that can come up from it. Now then, let us see if we can return and finish off today's tale. Double the trouble. Oh, whoa. Alright, Hateborn. Let's see if we can return just for the end of our story, yes? After spending an hour recovering, getting themselves back on their feet and fully replenished, the party began looking around the cave. Rasmussen finding himself staring at the strange throne the Alpha seemed to have sat upon. That's a bit odd, ain't it? Never knew Gnolls to really make anything, huh? I wouldn't know, Perch says, looking with him. Not really much interested in that. I suppose. That Pharaoh finds herself moving towards a strange cavern leading off from the main cave, while Tortuga and Malachite found themselves asleep, trying to rest off their near-death experiences, and Volantria meditating on the fight. The cave entrance would be just a bit tight at first, something she'd imagine the Gnolls would have some difficulty coming and going at their leisure. But as she pressed inward, she began to notice straw on the ground. Hay, grass, other materials like this. And as she rounded the corner, she would see several chests alongside racks of weapons, barrels with different implements in them, both mining and warlike. She would chuckle to herself. Seems like I'm the one who has found today's treasure. As she strides forward across the hay-strewn floor, though, she hears a sound. Shh. Of hay shifting, like a large rat moving beneath its surface. She begins to hold her spear aloft, pointing it in the direction of a mound of hay. "Hello?" she says. "Something wrong!" she hears a voice out from the entrance of the cave. "Maybe." With that, the party begins moving towards the entrance that she had found, pressing in one at a time after her, as she takes another step forward, keeping her spear prepared for whatever might be hiding. Then she hears a soft tone. And Pharaoh's eyes go wide as she sees claws dig up from the straw, and the small head of a hyena pup emerge. A striped hyena pup, or as it begins to stand looking up at Pharaoh defiantly, a Gnoll child, baby, in fact, stands before her. It raises its hackles and shows its claws, as behind it are two others. Another striped one like this child, and an albino, both of which seem filled with fear, staring at the blood-soaked Aarakocra, weapon aloft. "Oh," Farah says, looking at the three children, the three infants, three pups of the Gnoll tribe. Likely children directly from the Alpha. In fact, from the looks of it, a pair of them from the striped, bulked Gnoll, and one of them seemingly adopting traits from the albino. "I think we might have a problem," Pharaoh says, as the children hold their position at the back corner of the cave. The largest of the three stood, ready to fight. Alright. How about this? I'm gonna just... Rasmussen begins moving around Pharaoh, keeping a distance from the three young Gnolls at the back of the cave, grabbing up one of these chests, peering inside and finding it filled with refined bars of iron. That's valuable. I'ma just carry out most of the items, yeah? And we can deal with whatever that fucking problem is later. Yeah. With that, Rasmussen avoids making any eye contact with the young Gnolls as he begins carrying out the chests of refined iron and the barrels of weapons, keeping a distance and attempting to do everything in his power to avoid the inevitable conversation that must come from this discovery. Quietly, Perch and Valandria move up behind Pharaoh, who kneels down before the children and places her spear aside. "Hello there," she begins, as the first Gnoll snarls back at her. She thinks for a moment and changes her intonation, dropping in to a rarely known language, Abyssal. "Hello there, strong one and younglings," she says, looking past the Gnoll to the two behind it. She sees them all look at her confused, recognizing her tongue, but perhaps not overly familiar with her as an individual. Do you know what has happened? The largest of the three pups remains standing, its eyes narrow at the strange bird. Violent kill, it says, seemingly only able to state 2 words. It stands there, sneering. Yes, my friends and I came here and fought with your tribe, and we won. All 3 Gnolls seem to stare at her curiously now. Defense is still up. They seem somewhat off-center by this figure able to speak with them. We were strong, Pharaoh says, leaning closer to them. Your tribe was weak. The Gnolls take a moment to mull this over, it seems, to consider what has happened. You are now my tribe. You will now be strong. You will not be weak. With that, Pharaoh rises from her kneeling position to a full stance and extends her wings outwards, wide, adopting a position of power. The 3 pups look up at her. The albino and the smaller of the 2 striped seem to be accepting her. They kind of nod, small fear and awe in their eyes. The largest one, the one standing, looks up, defiant for a moment, before Perch strides forward. In his full suit of armor, he gives a grunt, stating, in his own abyssal tongue, "Yield, young one, for now." With that, the largest of the Gnolls sits and rejoins with the other 2, taking a moment to look at these figures that have slain their entire tribe. Can I speak with the 2 of you? Elandria says, outside. Please. All right, Pharaoh says, where she reaches into her bag and pulls out some of her own dried meat rations. Here, she states, placing a scrap in her hand and tearing it into 3 small portions. She approaches the Gnolls one at a time. From her hand, hands each of them a small scrap of meat. For she joins the rest of the party as they gather out into the main cave. All right, I'm awake, Tortuga states. So what do we find? Well, we got 2 barrels of refined iron, worth a few hundred gold pieces each, honestly. We've got some nice weapons here. As Tortuga looks over, Rasmussen draws a war pick from inside one of the barrels. This one to me looks enchanted, he says, tossing it to Valandria. They can take a look at it. Yes, in a moment, but... And we've got bad news. Well, awkward news, I suppose. What is it? Tortuga says, looking at the group who had just left the room of treasures. There are no pups in that room, Valandria states. Oh, fuck. Quite. And we need to figure out how we're going to deal with them. So fucking children after we just killed this whole fucking tribe? Yes, well, you see, we're not hurting the children, Pharaoh says. Pharaoh, listen, I understand that you do not want to hurt young, but there's something you need to understand about Gnolls. There's nothing you could say to me that would make me want to kill those pups. Listen, Pharaoh, the laundry states, trying to calm Pharaoh as she begins to become more and more ruffled at the talk. She feels a pressure from Perch beside her and wonders if everyone is against her on this. But as she glances over, she sees Perch, in fact, standing stalwart next to her, taking up a defensive stance. Listen, Pharaoh, in fact, everyone, you have to understand. Gnolls aren't natural creatures. Gnolls were all once hyenas, before the demon lord Yinogu strode on the world and transformed them into monsters. Gnolls are by their very existence partially demons, hell-bent on chaos and destruction and death. They are at their core evil. While at times they can become more animalistic, more like creatures of nature, as Yinogu's power wanes. If he ever strengthens, they return to being servants of death and destruction. Those aren't pups. They're small demons, the laundry states. Listen, I understand that this is a hard thing, but I can do it if it needs to be done. And I think it needs to be done. Valandria begins looking around at everyone imploringly. Malachite seems mostly indifferent, willing to go with whatever the party accepts here. She does not see much difference between the Gnoll pups, what they had fought through, or perhaps dog pups. Perhaps they'll be useful, perhaps they're dangerous. She does not care. Rasmussen seems somewhat supportive of Valandria's stance, that something needs to be done. We can't necessarily properly take care of them anyway, Rasmussen begins. But as he looks, he sees the immediate resistance from Perch and Pharaoh. Both of them defensive, anger across Pharaoh's face. I will not hurt children, she states. You don't have to be the one, Valandria responds. It'll be fine. I will not allow you to hurt children. They aren't, Valandria begins softly, as Pharaoh turns on her heel and disappears into the cave. Oh, this is gonna be a mess, isn't it? Rasmussen states. I don't think we should kill them either, Perch states quietly. Listen, Perch, they are dangerous. No matter what they look like, they could at any time. I know, Perch says, quietly, looking down at his own feet. But I don't think we can just kill them because of that. So, what are you saying? I think we have to do better than that. I think we have to take responsibility. Maybe find some way to cleanse the demonic energy, or stay with them until they become violent and deal with it then. We can't do that now. We have to try to do something better. The party falls quiet, looking at Perch, who begins to raise his eyes to look at each of them. I'll go stay with Pharaoh for a bit. See how she wants to resolve this. The party nods as Perch disappears after Pharaoh. I'm not trying to be the bad guy here. I don't like the idea of killing either, but they are... Rasmussen raises his hand. I know, Alondria, but maybe not now, yeah? For that, Rasmussen crosses his way to Malachite. Let's go shake the rest of this place down, yeah? See if there's any more valuables or maybe some secret way into that vault, right? For that, Malachite nods, and the two disappear down the caves, leaving Valandria alone to contemplate what happens next. As time begins to drag on, Malachite and Rasmussen find a few small valuables hidden away by many of the Gnolls, though no secret entrance into the vaulted door. They find themselves camping out in front of it, setting up a campfire, preparing a dinner, and staring out the doorway, wondering if there's some way in. Eventually, Tortuga joins them and begins making attempts with his lock-picking kit he had purchased recently from Gala, though has no clue how to use properly. As they begin trying to find their way through this, Valandria finds herself alone, outside the cave, staring inward, wondering what this strange group of adventurers will do next, wondering why they won't do this now. Quietly and alone, Valandria casts Theoman's tiny hut and sets her own place to camp, disinterested and returning into that cave. Perch spends the evening gathering up all the Gnoll corpses and gathering them here in this final area, away from where most of the party is camping and cooking, away from where people will have to make their way in, creating rows of the many dozens of dead Gnolls. Pharaoh finds herself alone in that hay-filled area, the nest of the Gnolls. She slowly begins to coo to them, speaking softly of nothing and abyssal, and offering up small scraps of food, until eventually she's able to coax the albino runt of this litter towards her. She feeds it as a reward for coming to her. As she looks down, the albino looks up at her. Its mouth opens, and in abyssal it says, runt. Weak. No, Pharaoh states, looking down at it. You are my tribe. You are no longer weak. As she states this, she looks up and sees second of the pups, the middle child, move towards her and sit down, waiting. And as a reward, Pharaoh presents to it its own scrap of dinner, which it eats before nesting near where she has set herself. Finally, the largest of them, the most resistant and self-reliant, moves over and narrows its eyes at her. Agreed, Pharaoh states. Eventually, this large one capitulates, lowering its eyes and showing its subordination to Pharaoh, at least for now. Pharaoh then offers it its own scrap of food that allows it to nest with her. As she stretches her wings wide and lowers them over the trio, over her nest, she finds herself drifting into a warm sleep. Some hours later, Pharaoh finds her eyes blinking open. She hears a soft sound in the cave. She looks down and sees the two striped gnoll pups nested beneath her, but not the albino. Rising gently, she makes her way out into the cave and sees a macabre sight. The albino gnoll sat on a corpse, staring down at another. The albino adult, its father, dead at its feet, its blood soaked into the earth, surrounded by dozens of other gnoll corpses. Pharaoh slowly and quietly approaches as the gnoll stares down. She sees its eyes glance towards her, then back towards its father, for it reaches and takes a tuft of fur from his corpse. It approaches Pharaoh and offers up the white tuft of fur. Lead will follow. The gnoll glances back at its entire tribe, wiped out and dead before it. Will not be weak. Pharaoh nods, accepting the tuft, as she kneels down and stares into its red eyes. You will not be weak with me. I will make sure of that. With that, Pharaoh guides the gnoll back and nests with it again, a warmth spreading through her chest. Rain falls aggressively outside as a quick storm cloud burst moves overhead. Valandria sits alone in her magical hut, warm and dry, though coldness inside. Something feeling like she had not felt in centuries.
Sorry, it was raining pretty hard.
She hears the gruff voice from outside the hut, and peering through its opaque walls, she sees Rasmussen standing nearby.
You mind if I come in? It's getting soaked out here.
Valandria rolls her eyes and waves her hand. You may come in.
Thank you.
That Rasmussen ducks as if pulling himself through a tent entrance and enters, sitting down beside Valandria.
Oh, a nice place you got here. Real nifty smell you got.
Yes, it's very useful.
Oh, you didn't come in for dinner, so I decided to bring you a bit of cooked sausage, yeah?
Thank you. Rasmussen, is there...
Oh, yeah. I was wondering. I went identifying our weapon.
Right. It is a enchanted war axe. It will maintain its sharpness and strength well beyond all others.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you.
Suddenly, Rasmussen's comfortable, though brusque, small talk seems to draw itself to a halt.
I wanted to see. I do appreciate you being here. Well, enjoy it. Rasmussen states.
Oh?
Yeah, what you did during the fight with the Gnolls, and even before that, you are a very important part of this team we've got going. We're dealing with, dangerous creatures and people, and I figured with you being out here alone,
I get the feeling many people in this group do not like me. Like I'm trying to impose something on them when I'm just trying. I understand, Andrea, I do. I don't know what you know about the Benor dwarves, but we have a long, dark history that comes with us. Something a lot of people find repugnant, I suppose. Something I've been working hard to. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is I've been traveling with this group for a while now. I mean, they've accepted me. I know you're the newest one to join in, and it can feel a bit awkward at times, but I want you to know that we do appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being honest about what you thought about those Gnolls, and well, not everybody was on board with what you were suggesting. I hope you know I don't judge you for it. They're dangerous, Rasmussen. I know that, but it's just something people aren't going to be okay with. Do you think I'm evil? No, of course not. I just wanted you to know that I understand. Thank you, Rasmussen. I appreciate you coming out here to tell me that. Perch recently seems to have come to resent something I did a while ago. Something very similar to this. There was a dark, evil object, and I didn't want to leave something like that around. Something tainted. And he seems to now hate me for it. And now Pharaoh has grown attached to these Gnolls when Rasmussen, I know they are evil and dangerous. And I think because of what I suggested now, she hates me too. What does one do when everyone seems to be slowly hating what has to be done? We just keep trying to do the best we can, Rasmussen says. Make the best choices we can and make up for past choices and what they caused. Thank you, Rasmus, for visiting me. If you don't mind, I would like to... Oh, of course. Sorry, I didn't mean to keep you up or anything. Just wanted to bring you some sausage and check on the weapon and all that. I'd see you in the morning, I suppose. Yes, you will. Good night, Rasmussen. Good night, Andrea. With that, Rasmussen departed from the hut, leaving Valandria to contemplate what is happening as rain pours down around her, wondering what the choices made in this dark cave might lead to in the future. As the rain pours, Sparrow sleeps nested with these children of violence. As Tortuga stares at the vault door, accompanied by Perch, each wondering what could be behind it. As Malachite sleeps full on mushroom soup. As Rasmussen quietly, dripping wet, returns to his own bedroll, staring out towards the exit, wondering what will happen next. We will end today's story time there, and allow you all a moment of reprieve from this dark cave and the trials that lied within it. With that, I would love to thank you all for coming and joining me for today's D&D story time. How are you guys doing? What did you think of today's story time? And what do you think will happen next? Do you boys have any questions or comments, curiosities, or anything you just have to know? Take a basket of tiny killer hyenas, please. Oh, I don't mind if I do. Since I listened, I know what happened, but what the fuck just happened? What do you mean, Marcial? I'm gonna need a more specific question than that. Party just killed a bunch of gnolls, got some treasure, and, other things happened. I was only able to catch the tail end, but that was great. Oh, one true Glaric, I'm glad you were able to catch at least the ending part of it. That was very relaxing. Thank you, Candidate Bacon. The pups, ooh woo. Oh, Hateborn, do you want some gnoll pups? Do you want some? I understand that. They are rather cute creatures when you think about them. Adopting gnoll pups. Yes. So, if you all want to know what happened here, I'd had the gnoll fight prepped for a few weeks because we had to take a week off when this was coming up due to one player having a bit of a scrambled schedule. And during that time, my players started joking about what would be at the end of this fight. And one of the jokes they made was, could you imagine if we get through all of this and after slaughtering this group of gnolls, there's a bunch of fucking babies at the end and we have to go full goblin slayer on them, bashing their skulls and whatever? And as they said that, I found myself caught in a conundrum because it sounded fucking amazing. And so I decided to see how the party would react if I presented 3 gnoll pups for them. And let me tell you, it led to such an extended period of RP, of players debating what they could do, that we had to actually stop the session for an hour for people to talk out of character over the pros and cons of taking on gnoll pups. And even then, the players were still aggressively split about what they wanted to do with it. Ethics! Exactly, Mortis. It was their greatest foe of this. Not arrows, not a gnoll alpha, not 2 players falling unconscious. But what to do about gnoll puppies. Also, do you think I could DM you about some things? It's fine if you're not comfortable, just know you care, but I need someone to talk to right now. Sorry to kind of announce it in chat. Sure, Canada. If you want to kind of reach out, that's fine if there's anything you're curious about. Are you part of the Discord already? Or if you want to DM me on Twitch, I'm always open to people DMing me. Just as a quick thing, if any of you, on a less serious note if I can, have any homebrew ideas or any D&D questions or anything you'd like to discuss, I am always open to chat D&D, whether you'd like to DM me on Twitch or on Discord. Hell yeah, reach out whenever you would like. But I believe that is all we have planned for today. Do you have a link to your Discord? I can grab one if you can give me a minute. But right now, I'm actually looking for something. A bit of artwork that one of my players made after this session. How long are you going to be online? I'm probably going to be on for another 5 minutes if we have any more questions or conversations you guys would like. Plus, I have to go and get, it seems, a Discord link for Canadan. And also, I'm trying to get some puppy artwork that one of my players made to show off to all of you that they decided to make after this session, and kind of cemented me knowing what the party was going to do with these boys going forward. I mean, in general, I think that really varies depending on the day and whatnot. Why you asking? Yeah, like tonight, it's the weekend, so I'll probably be up pretty late. Why? You feeling like you're gonna be coming in towards the end of something, Marcial? Oh. Albino pop tweet. I know, right? I had to make them all very unique from each other. If anyone's curious, of the Gnoll pups, there is 2 females and 1 male. The largest of the striped ones is a female of kind of the really large striped dude in the alpha, and is a twin of the middle child, which is a male, so is somewhat smaller than her, but is also still a rather large Gnoll puppy. The smallest of which is the last female, and an albino child of the albino alpha, and as such is rather adorable in many ways. Okay, yep. I think I have the image, but I think someone out there is doing me a favor with this one, and I have to thank them for it. If you all will give me just a second, I'm gonna get you all a very beautiful picture of some very handsome gnolls. So let's see here. Let's see here. A, B, C, D, E, F. Bullshit. Oh, it's too big. Oh no. Alright. Alright, y'all. Here you guys go. Just a little treat to end off today's stream. A picture one of my players made of the pups that immediately let me know they were not killing these things. That these are their official boblins. And let me tell you, I fully support that. So, with that, I would like to thank you all for joining me today. You would kill a Gnoll pup, wouldn't you? Aww. And we will get into this later when I go ahead with the story time, but I can't help this. The party has named all 3 gnolls. The albino gnoll was named Zonu. The middle child hyena, there, the one holding up that piece of wood with string between it, is the male. And he had shown some interest in crafting armor, tying together pieces of wood and bone, and so they named him Rook. Finally, the big female, the alpha of the group, was named Bagel. No, I'm not explaining why yet. You all will have to just live with the knowledge that this is Zonu, Rook, and Bagel. You're going to have to live with this knowledge for now and forever.
Terrifying. Pack leader Bagel. What do we do? All right, y'all. But with that, I want to thank you all for joining me. I want to wish you all a good night. But before we depart, you guys know what we are doing. We gotta find somewhere to send you all off to. So let's take a look, see who's live. If you guys have any suggestions. Ooh, although Lanar is alive. But she's got a couple thousand actually in chat, so I'll see if there's anyone smaller out there right now. Let's see here. Do any of you guys have any suggestions for a good raid we could do? OB Shep. I'll take a look at them. Moth Hime. OB Shep is at 38. Alright. Playing. What you playing, dude? Oh, Five Nights at Freddy's. God damn. And what's Mothy Hime doing? See your Mothy Hime. Oh, that is cute. Oh, he's Resident Evil. And at 12 viewers. Alright, y'all. One True Glaric, thank you for the suggestion. I think that's what I'm going to be sending you all off to. I hope to see you all very soon. Though with holidays coming up, it may be a bit of time. But for now, thank you for coming. Have a good night. And let's fucking go.